It's darker than usual.
That's what she said. That was recorded.
Good. You 3 minutes to poke a straw through the cup.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we just pulled into Savannah's doctor's office. She has a therapy appointment. Oh, by the way, welcome back. I'm Tanya. This is my channel. And
Welcome back. I'm Tanya.
This is episode 4 or something. 4.
This
therapy.
Yeah, 4.
Mental health therapy. So yeah, she hasn't had a therapy appointment in 3 weeks. She's long overdue.
Long.
So yeah, that starts in a couple minutes, so I have to turn this off and we have to run upstairs. So
Yeah.
We'll be back. Hey guys, so Savannah just had her therapy appointment. We're on our way home, and I guess Savannah, she hasn't told me anything about her appointment yet. So she's going to be telling me and you at the same time how it went.
Okay. So most of the time we focused on the anxiety that I've been having in the past week because, oh buddy.
It's been a lot.
I have not been able to focus on anything but my anxiety for the past few days. I had an anxiety attack the other day. It was 2 days ago? 2 nights ago? Yeah. So, we talked about that, and we talked about my hypochondria. I kind of told her everything that I've been, if you guys don't know, I research
A lot.
every time I have one symptom of something. I research it and I think I have it and I need to go to the emergency room and get it fixed, and get diagnosed. And she was talking to me about it, and she was like, when I first got into psychology, we got this big book of, diagnoses and stuff. And they said that when you read the book of all the symptoms and stuff, most people will think that they have half of the things because they read the symptoms. Just because you have the symptoms doesn't mean you have it. And just because, also if you have another one, for instance, I have anxiety, most of the time you will have crossovers of all of the, not all, but most of the other symptoms of ADHD, depression, OCD, well maybe not OCD, but also other things, they're usually connected. So for instance, lately I've been really scared that I have ADHD and depression, and I've been researching all about it. Duh. And just thinking that I have it. And something that she wanted me to start doing is distracting myself. So when I'm like, hey, I need to Google this because I had this symptom, instead of doing that, I'll put my phone away and go do something that can distract me. Not go watch YouTube or Netflix, because that's what I usually do to distract myself, and then 2 seconds later I'm back on Google. But do something that I can't, just go back to, leave the room and she said, cook a meal or something. Do something that you can really fully distract yourself and something that you have to fully focus on. She was like, even things that are verbal, going and talking to someone about, not that, but talking to them about something else. That way you're completely focused on the other thing and you're not thinking about what you were thinking about.
So basically she was saying you're not a hypochondriac, but a lot of different things have the same symptoms. So basically,
yeah. Doesn't mean I have the diagnosis of ADHD or whatever. It just means that, yeah, I have those symptoms and they're real and validated, but it's most likely part of my anxiety. And me researching it is making those symptoms worse or heightened or seem like that because I'm thinking about it all the time.
I mean, I feel like that is completely true because it's the same thing with physical problems. If you have a fever and a cough or a runny nose, it doesn't mean that you have the flu. It doesn't mean you have this or that. It just is a symptom of something.
Yeah. And then we also talked about how I always feel like I'm faking. So when I had my anxiety attack the other night, I was telling myself the whole time, I'm faking it, I'm faking it, I'm faking it. This isn't real. I don't really have anxiety. It's not as bad as other people. I'm a liar. I'm a sociopath. I'm a manipulator, blah, 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 blah. And not to bash my parents, but they, specifically my dad, will sometimes be like, just calm down. Calm down. You're doing it to yourself. You're overthinking it. And so if you would just stop thinking about it, you would be fine. Calm down, blah, 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 blah. But my therapist was like, those symptoms are real. You had physical symptoms. Yeah, people get anxiety and stuff, the thoughts, but you had those physical symptoms. Just because you didn't have, hyperventilating, sweaty palms shaking, doesn't mean it wasn't an anxiety attack. And if this is something that happens to you a lot when you get nervous, then yeah, it's anxiety. because this might be TMI, but I had nausea and then I was diarrheaing, and I had like tightness in my chest. Also, okay, the whole time she gave me this like analogy. She was like, okay, if you had diabetes, you can't see diabetes. You could be any, you could look any way, you could be whatever, and you could have diabetes, right? And no one would ever notice. If someone had diabetes and they were having, one of those like symptoms of it or whatever, would you say, oh, they're faking it? No, because they can't fake diabetes, you know what I mean? They can't fake, whatever. It's a physical thing. She was like, that's the same thing as your mental illness. You may not be able to see it. It may be different in every person, and it may sometimes be really good, sometimes be really bad, but you shouldn't tell yourself you're faking it. If you're having those physical symptoms, they're real. You can't fake nausea and diarrhea. You can't fake headaches. You can't fake all that, So she was like, just think of it as like diabetes. Would you tell someone with diabetes that they're faking it? No, you wouldn't. Then we talked about other stuff that I researched, Tourette's, OCD. We just touched on that for a second. How I said I think that's what I have.
What did she say about that?
Not much, because it was kind of in the middle of another conversation, but she was just like, yeah, I don't know. I don't really remember.
It looks like in the camera that we're literally driving in a snowball.
But yeah, we talked about like just a lot about anxiety and how I should start distracting myself, and also telling myself that I'm not faking it, because that's what I always tell myself, is that I'm faking it, or just being dramatic. And that's kind of partially fed off of other people's reactions, just because I feel like the way I perceive things is like when I talk about it to my parents, they get annoyed or something, or they're tired of me talking about it all the time.
Can I just be clear here? I don't get annoyed at Savannah every day about her anxiety and things like that. That's not an accurate representation of me. I have been there for her for the whole thing, and most of the time I can relate to her and all of that. But we are all human, and sometimes it's too much for me. She's talked about it too much. She said the same thing too many times in a row, and it doesn't matter what I'm saying, she's not listening. So then I lose my patience and I get annoyed, and I'm like, fine, I don't know what to say to you anymore, because nothing I'm saying is helping. But she'll just keep going for another hour, and I've already forgot. I don't know what to say anymore. So it's like, I don't know how to help you right now, because I've tried and I don't know what you want from me. It's that.
Well, because for me, there's nothing else I can do. Like, I am really bad. I let the anxiety control me. And so the only way for me to get help is when I release it verbally, when I talk to people about it. And yeah, sometimes it may be too much because I repeat it and I repeat it and I repeat it. But that's just because I'm having those thoughts all the time. And when I keep it inside, I can't help myself, because I don't know how to do that. I'm bad at that. I just, that's why I talk to people about it.
She giving you homework this week?
Just kind of the same stuff. I'm working on distracting myself and unhelpful and helpful things. Because apparently I have a lot of unhelpful behaviors, which is aka Googling everything and then thinking about it a lot because I'm
That's
Googling
advice
it.
for everybody not to do that.
No, I know, but I take it to the extreme.
No, I know.
I'm Googling things like constantly. I think she also linked it to my OCD too. She was like, if you're having anxiety about that and then you have OCD, thinking like, because like for instance, like for me, I'll be like, well, if I have this illness, like this disease or something, and I'm just thinking like, oh, if I have this illness and I don't go to the doctor about it, then I'm gonna die. Because I truly believe that I have it. So
Is there anything that you haven't touched upon yet?
I don't know.
I was worried at first because when we first went in there, because Savannah the last 2 times has been like appointment and then has to wait 3 weeks, and an appointment, have to wait 3 weeks appointment, when it's supposed to be an appointment every other week. So when I went in there today, I at first said, hey, can she maybe do a few back-to-back appointments like once a week, since she's been having a lot to talk about, but has been gone too long. And at first the therapist was like, oh, I'm booked all the way through February, and that's like 2 months. So then I was thinking, God, do we have to wait almost 2 months for her next appointment? And so I was like, oh God, I hope that's not the case. And then a couple minutes later, the receptionist was like, oh no, we have some spots available. So I did end up making the next 5 appointments for Savannah, and some of them, like the first couple, are back to back once a week up until I think the last 2. So that's a good thing. I'm glad she doesn't have to wait another 3 or 4 weeks in between appointments, because I honestly think that has a lot to do with whenever Savannah starts to spiral and her anxiety goes out of whack and all that. I think that happens mostly because she's been gone too long from her therapist.
Yeah. I think, like, because different things work for different people, and for me, therapy is, like, over medication, over other things that I guess I've tried. Therapy is the thing that helps me the most. Because some people don't need therapy, or it doesn't work for them, so they don't, like, really like it or something. But for me, like, when I've gone to therapy, I don't know if it's bad because I, like, rely on my therapist, but, like, when I don't go to therapy, I freak out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I need to see my therapist.
So hopefully the next few appointments will have a major positive impact on how she's been feeling anxiety-wise lately. Was there anything else discussed at the appointment that you didn't talk about yet? Anything else important?
I would go to therapy every day if I could. Because there's just not enough time in a 45-minute appointment to talk about everything that I need to talk about.
That's that. So I guess today's takeaway would be, whether you have anxiety or not, quit Googling everything.
Yeah.
Because then you're just going to, freak yourself out more.
And don't tell yourself that you're faking it, because basically what I just found out about myself is that I've been having panic attacks my whole life and didn't know it, because I thought that in order to have a panic attack you had to be hyperventilating, which is not true.
Yeah.
So that means that I've been having panic attacks like throughout my whole life. Because all those symptoms, I have those all the time. Not all the time, like a lot.
Well, I would say some of those could be just
if they're on their
anxiety
own.
attack, and some of them are, because I feel like there is a difference between an anxiety attack and a panic attack.
I think there is.
And I think that more often than not, you have anxiety attacks, but I do think you have panic attacks, but you just never realized it because, like you said, you don't hyperventilate and all that.
Mm-hmm. You can't see it when you look at me.
Yeah, but I have panic attacks that are both kinds, so I know that not every panic attack you have to be like...
If I'm in a social situation and I'm freaking out, usually you can see it on my face more. Like if I'm in school and have one, then it's more of like a, because I have to deal with something, I guess. But when I'm at home and having one, I'm the type of person that I have the anxiety attack where you shut down. And you're like all in your head. Yeah. But then I also have the physical symptoms, but like no one can see it on my face. Like if they were to look at me and I didn't tell them like, hey, I'm having one, they would probably just be like, oh. Yeah,
I think most of mine are very much, I get stuck in my head and like freak out more mentally. Yeah, but I've had both kinds, so. Anyway, I guess that will be it for today's mental health update and therapy update. The next one will be in 2 weeks after her next appointment. Mm-hmm. Hopefully the next 2 weeks goes okay with your homework and
anxiety, because my God, I haven't even focused on my OCD and like I'm still really struggling with it, but because of my anxiety, that's just like been through the roof, and that's been all I've been focusing on. So hopefully that gets better.
And also maybe the fact that you guys went back to school today, that might actually help a little bit, knowing that you're now distracted.
We did talk about that. She was like, what's a distraction you could do? And I was like, well, now that I'm in school, I don't have time to just sit around and be in my head all day. Right. I have to be working on something. Mm-hmm. So I
think that'll help a lot.
Especially if we're going in person too.
Yeah, next week they start going back in person twice a week. Mm-hmm. Alrighty, well, I'm tired of holding this, so that will be it for today's video. If you guys have any questions or comments about therapy or mental health, anxiety, OCD, any of those things, go ahead and leave those questions or comments in my comment section, and leave a like. Bless you. I raised my kids right. All right, so hit like on this video and subscribe if you haven't done that yet, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, poopies.